The morning sun filtered through the windows of Jefferson Elementary, painting golden streaks across the desks where children eagerly chatted about their families. It was career day, a time when students could proudly share what their parents did for work, and the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Mrs. Thompson, the teacher, stood at the front of the class, clipboard in hand, her smile stretched thin but authoritative. "All right, children," she began in her polished voice, "let's go around and share. Who would like to start?" Immediately, a boy with neatly combed blonde hair shot his hand up. "My dad is a surgeon," he declared proudly. The class clapped politely, and Mrs. Thompson beamed at him, nodding with approval. Next, a girl in a bright pink dress chimed in, "My mom owns the biggest bakery downtown. She makes cupcakes every day." Giggles rippled through the class, their minds filled with frosting and sprinkles, and Mrs. Thompson gave her a warm compliment. One by one, children spoke, their answers ranging from police officers to lawyers to small business owners. Sitting quietly near the back, however, was Amara, a shy black girl with dark, curious eyes and braided hair tied neatly with purple ribbons. She hadn't spoken yet, her fingers fidgeting nervously against her notebook. Finally, when it was her turn, she swallowed hard and whispered, "My mom works for NASA." The classroom fell silent, the words hanging in the air like an unexpected storm. For a brief moment, the children blinked in awe, imagining rockets, astronauts, and distant planets. But before anyone could marvel further, Mrs. Thompson let out a short laugh. "Oh, Amara," she said, shaking her head, "you don't need to make up stories. Be honest, dear, what does she really do?" The sting of those words pierced Amara like a cold knife. Her cheeks flushed as laughter trickled through the class, children snickering at the thought of her bold lie. Amara's lips trembled, but she repeated softly, "She really works for NASA." Mrs. Thompson's smile faltered into a smirk. "Honey, NASA doesn't just hire anybody. Maybe your mom cleans offices there. That would make more sense." Gasps and giggles erupted again, the children now fully convinced Amara had been caught exaggerating. Amara's chest tightened, her hands gripped the desk to keep from shaking. She wanted to cry, but she refused to let the tears fall in front of them. Inside, she thought of her mother's late nights, the endless papers filled with equations, the glowing laptop screen, the phone calls with colleagues. She remembered the stories of rockets, satellites, and the stars her mother spoke of with such passion. But none of that seemed to matter now, because no one in this room believed her. "We'll move on," Mrs. Thompson said briskly, brushing Amara's words aside like crumbs on a table. Amara lowered her head, staring at the floor as her classmates continued to share their family stories. Each announcement only deepened the ache in her chest, her mother's achievements now twisted into a cruel joke. At recess, a group of children cornered her by the swing set. "So, Amara," one boy sneered, "does your mom ride rockets to work?" Another chimed in mockingly, "Maybe she's an alien. That's why she works at NASA." The others laughed loudly, pushing and taunting until Amara ran off, her small legs carrying her to the far edge of the playground. She sat alone on the grass, knees tucked into her chest, staring at the sky she once loved. The clouds drifted lazily, and she wondered if her mother was looking at the same sky from her office, far away, working on something extraordinary. The humiliation was heavy, but she held on to one truth: her mother really did work for NASA. That evening, when Amara's mom picked her up, she noticed the sadness in her daughter's eyes. "What happened, sweetheart?" Dr. Williams asked, her voice gentle but concerned. Amara hesitated, then finally whispered, "No one believed me. They laughed when I said you work for NASA. Even my teacher laughed." The pain in her daughter's voice cut through drive. Williams like glass. She pulled the car over and turned to face Amara, her expression serious yet filled with love. "Amara," she said firmly, "never let anyone make you feel small for speaking the truth. Your voice matters." Amara nodded, but the sting of humiliation still lingered. That night, Drive. Williams lay awake, replaying the story in her mind. She felt a fire ignite within her, a determination not only to defend her daughter's dignity but to prove to everyone that her child's words carried weight. The next morning, she called the school and spoke to the principal. "I'd like to visit Amara's classroom," she said calmly, "to speak with the children about science and space exploration." The principal, excited by the idea, quickly agreed. Mrs. Thompson, upon hearing the plan, forced a polite smile but felt her stomach churn. The following week, Amara sat once again in her classroom, her heart pounding with anticipation as her teacher announced, "We have a special guest today." The children whispered eagerly, curious about who it could be. Moments later, the door opened, and Dr. Williams stepped inside, wearing a tailored suit with a shiny NASA badge pinned proudly to her chest. The room gasped collectively, the air thick with disbelief and awe. Amara's eyes widened, her lips parting in a smile that she could no longer hide. "Good morning, class." Drive. Williams said, her voice confident and warm. Mrs. Thompson froze, her cheeks paling as she realized exactly who this woman was. "This is my mother," Amara whispered proudly, her voice carrying more strength than ever before. The children turned to her, their expressions stunned, realizing she had been telling the truth all along. Dr. Williams introduced herself formally. "I'm Drive. Vanessa Williams, an aerospace engineer at NASA. My team works on spacecraft systems that make space travel possible." A silence followed, then an eruption of questions from curious students, their eyes wide with wonder. "Did you really help build rockets?" one boy asked eagerly. Dr. Williams smiled and nodded. "Yes, and I've worked on satellites too, things that orbit above us every day." The children leaned forward in fascination, their earlier laughter replaced with admiration. Mrs. Thompson, still recovering from shock, forced herself to step forward. How marvelous," she stammered, "what an incredible opportunity for our students." But her words rang hollow, the memory of her mocking laughter still fresh in Amara's mind. Dr. Williams began her presentation, pulling out colorful diagrams, photographs of rockets, and even a small model spacecraft. The class sat captivated, their mouths slightly open as she explained the science behind launching a vehicle into orbit. "Space is not just for astronauts," she said firmly. "It's built by engineers, scientists, and dreamers who believe in the impossible." Amara's chest swelled with pride as her mother spoke, her voice strong, commanding the room. Several children raised their hands, asking question after question, eager to know more. "Do you get to go into space?" one girl asked. Dr. Williams laughed gently. "Not yet. My job is to make sure astronauts can travel safely." Another boy blurted, so Amara wasn't lying. Dr. Williams looked at him directly. "No, she wasn't lying. She told you the truth, and you should always listen when someone speaks from their heart." The words struck the room like lightning, leaving the teacher flushed with embarrassment. Amara sat straighter, the heaviness of yesterday's humiliation finally lifting. Her classmates whispered among themselves, some glancing at her with sheepish guilt. By the end of the session, every child had crowded around Drive. Williams, marveling at the photos, touching the model spacecraft, and bombarding her with questions. But amidst the excitement, one truth remained clear: Amara's voice had finally been heard. As the class ended, Mrs. Thompson approached Drive. Williams awkwardly. "I owe you and Amara an apology," she said quietly. I doubted her. I shouldn't have." Dr. Williams looked at her calmly. "Children should never be punished for believing in their families. Your words matter more than you realize." Mrs. Thompson nodded, guilt etched into her expression. That day, Amara walked out of school with her head held high, her classmates looking at her with newfound respect. No longer the target of ridicule, she was now admired, not just for her mother's achievements, but for her courage to speak the truth. At recess, children approached her differently. "Amara, your mom is amazing," one said sincerely. Another added, "I want to be a scientist too, just like her." For the first time, Amara felt a wave of belonging, the sting of yesterday replaced by a glow of pride. That night at home, she hugged her mother tightly. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. Dr. Williams kissed her forehead. "Never forget, Amara, the truth always finds its way to the light." In her heart, Amara carried those words like armor, knowing they would protect her in every room she entered. The experience had changed not just her, but her entire class, shifting their perspective about dreams, truth, and respect. Even Mrs. Thompson found herself reflecting deeply, her arrogance humbled by the powerful presence of truth. For Amara, the sky above was no longer just clouds and stars, it was a reminder of her mother's brilliance and her own future potential. She promised herself she would never again shrink her voice, even if others laughed. Because now, she understood that believing in the truth was stronger than any doubt. And her mother's footsteps at NASA weren't just hers to follow, they were an invitation for Amara to dream even bigger. The story of one girl's truth had transformed an entire classroom, leaving behind a lesson no one would forget. And as the weeks passed, whispers of Amara's mother's visit spread across the school, inspiring children everywhere to believe, both in their families and in themselves.